I spoke in an earlier episode about how our brain learns to predict based on life's experiences. One of its jobs is to predict the future, and one way it does this is to scan the environment, looking for threats to our safety. So some people's brains are faster at this than others. If you're unlucky enough to have one of these brains, then your thoughts may often sound like this: something bad is going to happen here. You might be one of those people who are always preparing for the worst case scenario or expect a bad outcome. That's what we call pessimism. And can you guess what I'm about to say? People who are generally pessimistic tend to have shorter telomeres and at risk for cancer and heart disease. Not only that, these diseases tend to progress faster. Some people are born pessimists, but some people's environments have programmed to think this way too. I've now mentioned two types of thinking that are not healthy for us. Fortunately, there are techniques we can use to change our thinking and our habits. Once I've outlined a few more detrimental habits, I plan to give you some good nuggets to try. So hang on, as the kids these days say. We've all sat down to read something and found that we have no idea what we just read, right? The paragraph, the chapter, even one sentence. I've sat down and practiced at the piano before. My finger's able to go through the motions, and somehow my mind is on the grocery list or the laundry I need to fold, and I have no idea what I just practiced and certainly haven't retained the skill. So this is no surprise. This is called mind wandering. Yeah, harmful enough? Well, studies from Harvard show we spend half our day thinking about something other than what we're doing. Get this, even sex, conversation, and exercise show a 30% mind-wandering rate. The study's conclusive data was this: those who are not thinking about what they are doing are not as happy as when they're engaged in the activity. And guess what? In another study of women, those with the highest levels of self-reported mind-wandering were the women with the shortest telomeres. Last year, in one of my first videos, I talked about presence for the first time. I've talked about it a lot. Weston Noble, a very well-known choral conductor, spoke about collecting trash around the campus of Luther College. Now, wait, a choral director collecting trash? Yes, and not just mindlessly performing a service act, but actually paying attention to the trash. He said it was very enlightening what he would find in the trash at particular times of the year, like, trash of liquor waste around finals time. I have also mentioned that I listen to videos and podcasts with Eckhart Tolle and others about presence. A large part of why I do yoga is to practice focus and presence. When I walk, I don't have anything playing in my ears. Rather, I try to see the world through Patch's eyes or like a child. What is it Jesus said? Something about we should all be as children? Today is somewhat a continuation of yesterday. Though the book divides this into another telomere shortening vice. It's multitasking. As the book says, splitting our attention into multiple tasks. Comes to find out that this is a low-grade source of noxic stress, even if we are not aware of it. So it turns out that the most efficient use of time is to do one thing and to pay full attention to it. Taken directly from the book, unitasking, sometimes termed flow, is the most satisfying way to spend moments. We allow ourselves to be content and absorbed. Think about that for a moment. When do the hours fly by? I have the perfect informal study of this. Oftentimes, the piano class students will tell me that piano class goes by faster than any other class they have. So why is that? Because they're absorbed in practicing, fully present in learning a new skill. I'd like to assign you some homework, some thought homework today. First, what have you fully engaged in lately that propels you to the end of the day and you think, wow, where did the day go? And second, what were your thoughts during a recent day that you thought would never end? So which day were you the happiest? When is the last time you had a really bad day? and you came home, or your spouse came home, or significant other, and you took it out on them. Something so minuscule you created an argument over that even later you wondered, what was I thinking? Now, some of you might be thinking that I am rehashing some things that I've already talked about, but the book, The Telomere Effect, dives deeper, and so am I. So, there are a few ways that we think that are detrimental to our telomeres. We know that. That also, we know, translates to a shorter health span and a longer disease span. So, I'm going to dive right in today with some ways that we think that are not so great. So the first one is cynical hostility. This is defined as acute anger and frequent thoughts that other people cannot be trusted, even our spouses and significant others, our family. Coping techniques for people with high cynical hostility are overeating, drinking too much, and smoking. So what diseases come with those habits? We know these, right? Cardiovascular disease and metabolic diseases. And yes, you guessed it, shorter telomeres. These people die at younger ages. Remember when we talked about facing stress with a challenge approach? Okay, so here's what happens. Our body's stress responses spike, but then they return to normal. Well, if you are a high cynical hostility person, then you lose the ability for those stress responses in your body to be able to return to normal. So what happens? The door for diseases opens. Men seem to be more vulnerable than women to this type of thinking, but I will discuss later in the week, women have other responses that make them vulnerable also. Good morning. It is Friday, and yes, we are at the end of the week and at the end of our last toxic thought. So, I want to talk about rumination today. I've mentioned it before, and the book says, taken directly from the art, yes, I said the art, of rehashing our problems over and over. Man, what a rabbit hole, right? It can tie us up, suck us in like no other when we do this. And do we really solve any problems by ruminating or brooding, going over and over and over something, hashing it over and over? Do we ever get any kind of relief? No. Likely, you feel as if you're in a whirlpool of negativity and self-criticism. Rumination really just feels awful. And for good reason. The longer we ruminate, the lower the telomeres, and instead of growing telomeres, our cells begin sending out that junk they produce that causes inflammation. As if that isn't enough, the rabbit hole continues to diseases. But with this particular damaging thought process, we also get the lovely added benefits of more depression and developing anxiety. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to tackle one more today because it accompanies rumination, and that is thought suppression. I'm not going to continue to hash this problem over and over. I'm just going to push the thoughts from my mind, right? When has that ever worked? The harder we try not to think about it, the more we think about it. So, instead of being less stressed, we're more stressed. Ever heard of PTSD? Think about it. We push away our bad feelings. They barrel through like a freight train. Then we feel bad. And then we feel bad about feeling bad. This extra feeling bad layer chokes out every bit of energy left for coping. Thought suppression, as the authors put it, is a royal road to chronic stress and depression. So then what? Yep, shorter telomeres, but there's hope. And next week, we're going to begin on developing new habits.